Hat, sunglasses, Pepsi, notes, sources, thick skin, check. You already know. Let's go. Golden Blued is a college football YouTube channel for entertainment. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and let's get into our next college football video. We already know by now that the NIL and the transfer portal is literally shaping and molding college football. Reshaping, remolding college football, I should say. You shouldn't get used to players staying at one place for their entire career in college football anymore. It's wherever the most money that they can make, that's where they're going to go. And the crazy thing about this, though, it means that teams that were bad last year should be automatically much better this year because of the transfer portal. So in a weird way, it does help those teams that did very, very badly last year if they can pick up great transfers. We look at the transfer portal this year, and there's 4 names that I'm looking at as far as could make a huge difference to the teams that they are headed to, even if they didn't do so great this year. First name is Kedon Slovis. He is transferring from Pitt to now BYU. I didn't know he was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but that's a whole different subject. He's already transferred once from USC to Pitt and now to BYU, and he actually does have pretty decent stats, except for this past year. For whatever reason, Pitt was just not a very good fit for Kedon Slovis. In his 3 years at USC, 652 for 953, that's 68.4%, threw for 7,576 yards, 58 touchdowns and 24 interceptions. But at Pitt, in his one season at Pitt, 184 for 315, just 58.4%. That's a good 10% decrease. 2,397 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. Didn't have a great year last year. He wants to finish off on a strong note. Maybe there was just a lot that he saw over there at BYU that he really, really liked. And I do think that BYU is in a pretty good position. This quarterback you need to look at as far as transferring is DJ Uaigaleleh. He's transferring from Clemson to Oregon State. And this is not the first time that Oregon State has been at least on the list as far as destinations for a high-profile transfer. Last year, they were on the list for JT Daniels. This year, they are getting DJ Uaigaleleh. In his 3 years at Clemson, 515 for 861. That's 59.8%. Threw for 5,681 yards. 36 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. Dual threat quarterback, don't forget about that. 275 carries for 913 yards. That's 3.3 yards a carry and 15 touchdowns. Could DJ Uaigaleleh have a breakout year at Oregon State? Not necessarily turn them around because they actually had a pretty good year this past year, but kind of build upon what they did last year and potentially have Oregon State as Pac-12 championship contenders. Well, he's going to have to do better than what he did this past year. He straight up struggled and lost the starting position, Cade McNamara. But remember, the standards at Clemson are much higher than the standards at Oregon State. And don't be offended at that, Beaver fans. You know it's true. Just like I know that standards at Ohio State are much higher than West Virginia. It is what it is. Next thing that's worth keeping an eye on, doesn't mean it's going to pan out to mean anything. Cade McNamara transferring from Michigan to Iowa. In 2021, he was part of the Michigan team that went to the playoffs. This year, he actually got beat out by J.J. McCarthy. So he is transferring over to Iowa. Iowa is not known for their prolific offense. They're actually known for their really, really good defense. In his 3 years at Michigan, 267 for 423, 63.1%, threw for 3,181 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. Decent stats, but not blow you away stats. But they could be the stats that I was looking at and going, that might be the guy that we need. We don't need a guy that's going to sling it all over the place, but we need a guy that's not going to turn the ball over and that can move the chains and slow this game down. Cade McNamara might be the perfect quarterback fit for Iowa. Iowa could be headed in a very good direction this year as far as possibly competing for the Big Ten championship if McNamara can have a breakout year and that defense is solid as usual. That's a big if, though. The last name I want to talk about as far as this year's transfer portal and big-time quarterback name is Devin Leary, finally transferring out of NC State. Remember, he's been there 4 years. Headed over to Kentucky. Wow, you talk about landing on their feet. They find out that Will Levis is declaring for the NFL draft, and they're able to land Devin Leary out of the transfer portal. Mark Stoops is cooking something over there at Kentucky, straight up working miracles. This is not normal for Kentucky football. I don't know if y'all are aware of that. In his 4 years at NC State, 568 for 944, that's 60.2%, threw for 6,807 yards, 62 touchdowns, and 16 interceptions. So he does have some pretty good stats, comparable to Will Levis, and I think the style that he plays could actually resemble a lot of what Will Levis did over there at Kentucky. So they're not going to lose much as far as losing Will Levis and gaining Devin Leary. Kentucky might poise to make a run at the SEC East title if they can somehow topple Georgia. That's also a big if. The reason I'm mentioning this is you look at teams from the past year, and one big transfer elevated their playing level to a situation where they're competing for maybe conference championship or getting to a double-digit win season. There were some flops out of the transfer portal, not going to lie. The two biggest flops were, well, Kedon Slovis from USC to Pitt. That was kind of a flop. Not a terrible flop, but kind of a flop. Now he's transferring to BYU. But the biggest high-profile flop was actually JT Daniels to West Virginia. Man, we put a lot of stock into JT Daniels. And the first 4 games, West Virginia actually looked pretty good under that offense. And it looked like Graham Harrell had complete control until that Texas game. And then things fell apart. And then I think JT Daniels was screwed at West Virginia. I don't think it was a good fit. I'm glad he got out of there. I think it was best for both parties involved, West Virginia and JT Daniels. But man, I had high hopes for the guy at West Virginia, and it just didn't pan out. I already talked about Will Levis. Remember, he transferred from Penn State to Kentucky. That worked out. Quinn Ewers transferring from Ohio State to Texas. Yes, he was banged up a lot. But whenever he did start over there at Texas, Texas was a pretty good team. But the two big names that I talked about last year that most definitely did pan out. The first one, Michael Penix Jr. transferring from Indiana to Washington. I warned y'all that Washington was going to be a much better team because this guy, as long as he's healthy, is an elite quarterback both with his arm and with his legs. In 2022 at Washington, he went 330 for 500. That's 66%. Threw for 4,354 yards, 29 touchdowns, just 7 interceptions. Dual threat quarterback, but slight dual threat quarterback because of those injuries. 32 carries for 86 yards, just 2.7 yards a carry and 4 touchdowns. But those throwing stats are crazy. He should have made the Final 4 cuts. And Washington went from 4-8 in 2021 to 10-2 in 2022. They were just one loss away from getting to the Pac-12 championship. Yes, that's how much a high-profile transfer can help a team if it fits the situation. And Michael Penix Jr. most definitely fit the situation. I knew that was going to happen if he could stay healthy. The other one that you have to talk about is Caleb Williams, who transferred from Oklahoma to USC because of Lincoln Riley. And of course, we know the story. In 2022, 296 for 448, that's 66.1%. Threw for 4,075 yards, 37 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Dual threat quarterback, 109 carries for 372 yards, 3.4 yards to carry, and 10 touchdowns. But if you compare his throwing stats to Michael Penix Jr. stats, Michael Penix Jr. actually had better stats. That's why I thought Michael Penix Jr. should have been in the top 4. Now, if you're going to add on the dual threat aspect, of course, Caleb Williams was able to run the ball more. The quarterback position is determined by the arm, so why Michael Penix Jr. was not in the Final 4, that absolutely blows my mind. Especially if you compare his stats to Stetson Bennett, Max Duggan, and Justin Fields. The only guy that was close to his stats was the Heisman Trophy winner, Caleb Williams. And of course, USC went from 4-8 in 2021 to 11-2 in 2022, Pac-12 runner-up. Now, we all know it also matters how much talent is around the guy. It's not just one guy changes the entire team, but one guy can help a team tremendously. Will one of these 4 quarterbacks be that one guy that helps their team take the next step? So y'all let me know in the comments section. Number 1, which one of these 4 names do you think is going to have the highest impact on the team that they're going to? Number 2, do you think that there's another name that I didn't mention that could have a higher impact than the 4 names that I did mention? That's all I got for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.